We did it again, baby. Another Black Ice production. This here be strictly for the listeners, y'all. It's hard work being this damn good. They wondered how could I top the last CD, but the gift of these words make what you hear now compared to what you heard look easy. And the last album was just a sign that it was time for me to be released from the earth. Third trimester definition, last stage before birth, the womb of my mind. Now I'm expanding my nostrils, particles of a new man in an obstacle, a new testament, the beginning of a new sentence. Black Ice, a definite article, and I become a part of you. 4 albums later, still serving you like a waiter, giving you wisdom like a father do. And I'm just hoping that you can keep up. I'll do the work, you just sit back and kick your feet up. Another job well done. Coming from Inglewood to Hollywood. What's up, Chicago? This is your boy Maze Jackson, and you are tuned into the Maze Said Radio Show and Podcast. We have a great show lined up for you tonight. We have in studio, I would say a guest, but he's not a guest. He's really like my semi-co-host. I'm your sidekick. No, you can't be a sidekick. This can't be a sidekick. The world famous Charles Thomas, the number one reporter between New York and LA. He is in the studio. We always have a good time. Welcome, Charles. I sidekick for you, Maze. I appreciate that, brother. Sir. I appreciate that. And ladies and gentlemen, we have the woman of the hour. Boy, it's a lot going on, and I cannot wait to talk to her tonight. Candidate for Cook County State's Attorney, Mrs. Kimberly Foxx. I'm sorry, Kelly. I'm sorry, brother. I got you. You know what I'm saying? These liberated women, you don't know when they elected. You don't know if you're supposed to say Ms. or Ms. Look, Kelly, I know you a man like me. It's Mrs. Kim Foxx in the building. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. Woo! You know what? This is going to be a great show. And y'all know we got a lot to talk about.
Don't we?
I was going to make this up. I was going to make this a political forum, kind of state's attorneys question and answer race, but we got so much going on.
Man, let's just talk, man.
I think we should just chit-chat, talk about what's going on. Yeah. And then, Kim, if you can give us some insights and some perspective as to how we need to look at these things, that would be great. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, you are tuned in again to the Maze Said Radio Show and Podcast every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. We are on www.IntellectualRadio.com. We are an iHeart radio station. Give us a call, 708-223-8953. Now, if there's a night that you were supposed to call in, tonight is the night, because we have an expert on a lot of stuff that's going on in the city and state right now. Well, excuse me, in the city right now. So we're just going to jump right into it. Kim, welcome.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for making time in your busy schedule, even though y'all know this is the second time she's appeared on the show. And you know me and my exclusivity, right? I feel like I got to be the one, but it's okay because it's Kim Foxx. So we're going to do our thing.
Thank you, man. And congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you very much. Yes, for those of you all who did not know, I have been gone for the last 2 weeks because I recently got married to the love of my life, Cook County Commissioner of the Water Reclamation District, Carrie Steele. Hey, babe, I hope you're watching.
Carrie Steele Jackson.
Carrie Steele Jackson.
We'll drink one to Carrie Steele Jackson.
Toast it up.
Let's toast it up.
Carrie Steele Jackson.
Carrie Steele Jackson and Maze Jackson. And may there be many, many, many little Jacksons.
It's already 2. Hold on, homie. Cheers. I've been thinking about that. And I was thinking
don't think too much.
I was doing the math, right? And I was thinking if that's the case, if I had a kid, dang, Charles, I was thinking will I be the 72-year-old dude at the basketball game?
Paying college tuition at age 75. Man.
Okay. Past that. All right. What's up, Bug? What's up, Milan? That's my 2 kids. I got a 15 who's about to be 16, December 26th. So, Milan, if you're tuned in, we are excited, and I'm a little bit nervous about her turning 16 because she's going to be in a car, and I got a 10-year-old son. But I want to talk to you. Oh, Kim, you're getting some representation already. Said Jay is saying, what's up, SIU, homie?
All right, salute.
All right. But as I mentioned, my soon-to-be 16-year-old daughter, it brings to mind a lot of the incidents that happened in the past, a lot of the things that have unfolded in the last week. And so I don't feel like we can
really even do this show without talking about everything that happened. So for those of you who are not aware, last Tuesday night, the city of Chicago released a video of the murder of Laquan McDonald, who was killed by Officer Van Dyke.
Jason Van Dyke.
Jason Van Dyke. Okay, got it.
Van Dyke.
So Jason Van Dyke killed Laquan McDonald, shot him 16 times. Now, I don't know if you all remember this chump, Pat Camden, who told the story. You know, because I could script Pat Camden. Anything he says, the offender jumped. So Pat Camden a year ago told us a story about Laquan and how he lunged at the police officer with a knife and they were forced to shoot him 16 times. They lunged at him with a knife and he was forced to shoot him 16 times.
Well, I think he didn't say 16 times. He initially said he lunged with a knife and he was forced to shoot him in the chest. He never said 16 shots.
Okay, got it. So we already know. So anytime, first of all, Pat Camden, kill yourself. Oh. Real talk. Because Pat Camden, you are officially confirmed as the official liar. You were the official liar of the Chicago Police Department. Now you're the official liar of the Fraternal Order of Police. That's that pension stuff, how it works. And didn't we just pay them $500 million too? Okay, I'm not even get to these police. So Laquan McDonald was killed by Officer Van Dyke, and the tape was released last week. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, after seeing that tape, and let me be clear, I did endorse Rahm Emanuel in the primary, but after seeing the tape of the murder, I was moved. Can't even lie and tell you I wasn't moved. It wasn't as shocking as I thought it was going to be, and I think I'm probably numb because I play Call of Duty, right? So you're used to seeing these murders and killings. So when I first saw it, it didn't really, I was just like, oh, you know, and then it was like really realizing what was happening. Like the first shot that spun him around and he fell down, and then when you started seeing those clouds of smoke coming out of his body, when you first saw it, you didn't really realize what exactly was happening. And it took CNN to play it back and say, okay, this is what is happening. Bam, 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 bam.
Now, what's your name again? You're running for what?
Kim Foxx for Cook County State's Attorney.
Okay.
I thought you were running.
Foxx.
No, Kim Foxx is running.
Kim Foxx is running, but
Thank you, Charles.
she's talking.
Yes.
So this murder occurs. We see it on tape. The tape is released, and the mayor gets on the news and tells us that we have to be calm and we have to not be violent. And having watched, now coincidentally, this killing happened during the time, a year ago, during the time of what happened with Michael Brown. So I can imagine that everybody was on pins and needles. And then it was in the heat of a political election in which the mayor was on the ropes and was forced into a runoff. So we're going to get to that, but I want to park it for a second, because after watching the video, you know, Charles and Kim, I have a 15-year-old daughter that's about to be 16. And as I watched that video, I thought about my daughter being a driver, because she's going to start driving soon. Thought about her starting dating, because I told her at 16 she could date. I might have to push that back. So Milan, don't count on 16 just yet. And I thought about my daughter going on a date at some point in her life and possibly going out with a guy that looks like that, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe he's got his hair and I don't like his hairstyle. Maybe he dresses a way I don't like for him to dress. He might even act in a way that I might not like, but probably experienced or did in some way when I was a kid. And I think that we as kids make a bunch of mistakes, but I think about what happens if my daughter on one of her dates runs into Officer Van Dyke. And so I just said, I got to do something. And so shout out to Melody Span Cooper. I was filling in last week on WVON, and I had 2 days. I had Thanksgiving Day and the day after, and I said, you know what? There's no point in having a voice and not doing something with it. And so I woke up and I just decided that, look, we gonna be down here and we gonna march. And let me not say march, because I'm kind of anti-march. Let's say we gonna shut something down. We gonna do something. And then I thought about all of the ramifications of trying to do something with the Black Lives Matter and seeing people tearing stuff up, and I really didn't want to have that. And so it came to my mind, because every time we see one of these shootings, they always trot out, so every time a black kid is killed, they trot out some tattoo-faced black dude who got tattoos, was a gang member, and brought it on himself. But they never tell the story of the responsible black families that are involved in their kids' lives on a daily basis. And so when Officer Van Dyck took the opportunity to shoot this kid, he never thought about the families behind him, what that meant, etc. And probably if he did, he thought like, yo, I probably would have shot them too. That's what I thought. And so I thought, hey, what could we do if we could get black parents to come down to Michigan Avenue, not riot, not tear up, civil disobedience, and really try and change or shape the narrative that we were dealing with. And so we had a very large march. Now, great minds think alike. So I wasn't the only one with the idea. We had an idea. Jesse Jackson thought about doing the same thing. Father Flager thought about doing the same thing. And then so did Otis Moss. And so what that culminated in was the shutdown of Michigan Avenue, right? And when I say shut down, we shut that summer gun down, right? But as I think about this, it's far too common that we see the murders and the deaths of our kids. And now I've got this press release that tells me that there's another shooting that happened 2 days before, and they're asking for the tape. The family is holding a press conference tomorrow at 10 asking for the tape to be released. And so here we are, 2015, and there's no difference than what happened to Fred Hampton and Mark Clark back in 1969, December 4th, 1969. And here we are coming up on December. And so how far have we really come? So today I'm going to talk to you, Kim. I'm going to talk to you, Charles, and we're just going to talk about this. I want to talk about the situation. I want to talk about the potential of a cover-up. I want to talk about the fallout, and then I want to talk about what are our solutions and what can we do to make things better. So with that in mind, I'm going to start with you, Kim. Okay. Give me some insight on what you think happened and where was the failings, what went wrong. Yeah. Tell me your thoughts on the situation.
I mean, when you see the tape, I'm like you. I watched it a couple times, and I had a pit in my stomach, not just for the fact that there was somebody capable of doing that, who's wearing a uniform, who's supposed to be out protecting me and you and my children, would take it upon himself to do that, but that happened 400 days ago. And that the only reason that last Tuesday we were able to see the video and that he was charged was because a judge said, stop blocking the video. And the question that you have to ask is, when you see something that horrific, why wasn't all hands on deck to make sure that we had justice for this young man?
And when you say all hands on deck, tell me what that means.
I mean, so you had the video, you had the police witnesses, you had the civilian witnesses, you had the autopsy report, you knew what gun it was, so you didn't need like ballistics because you saw him shooting. So when you're reviewing a case like this isn't a whodunit. I used to work in felony review where we'd have to review these cases. It wasn't a whodunit. You knew who did it. And the question of looking at, was this part of the execution of his duties? You have to be meticulous and thoughtful and all those things to make sure that you are charging him correctly.
It was part of an execution, but go ahead.
But it wasn't 400 days.
Okay.
And the question that I was struck with, this was a young man who had come through juvenile court. I was a supervisor in the courtroom that he was in. I knew the judge, I knew the prosecutors, I know the defense attorneys who had this young man's case. He had a really rough life. And the question that you ask yourself is, was all hands not on deck? Was it so easy to dismiss what happened to him because who was going to come asking questions? Who was, I mean, to your point about the parents marching the other day, it was like, who was going to come ask questions for him? And when you finally saw a child struck down in that manner, and you realized that for a year there was a concerted effort to hide this from view, and only because it was going to be on public display was our justice system enacted to do something. I was, as a mother, horrified. As a former prosecutor, I was angered. And as a resident of Chicago for my whole life, I was embarrassed that this is how we do justice in this town. There was no reason. There was absolutely no reason that 400 days should have gone by.
So I'm going to take that 400 days. We're going to look at when the shooting occurred, because it happened during that very heated Democratic primary. So my question becomes, and I'm going to throw this to Charles. Charles, why hold the tape? Like, why? Because I guess for me, I don't understand what benefit is it for Anita Alvarez to hold the tape.
You know,
she didn't have an election.
Yeah. You know, first of all, let me say the tragedy here is the loss of a young life.
Yes.
That is the greatest tragedy. But not far behind it is this reality that this is another steaming pile of Chicago politics at its absolute worst. I mean, the fact that nothing was done about this video, I think, is part and parcel of the culture in the Chicago Police Department and the independent police review authority. It used to be, what do they used to call it? Professional standards at
OPS,
some point. And called it something else at some point. But where you do nothing when officers commit crimes, essentially. And this has been going on for a long time. You'd be surprised at the number of cases that I've followed. I remember one in particular, the Aaron Harrison case. This young man was running from the police on the west side. And again, we heard the narrative. He had a gun, he turned, and he pointed the gun at the officer, and the officer fired. Fearing for his life, the officer fired and shot this young man down. Well, once his family sued the police department, and they did forensics on the gun that was found next to Aaron Harrison's body, they found that there were no fingerprints on this gun. This gun actually had an origin that was easily traced. So they knew where the gun came from. It didn't have any crimes on it or anything. And how did Aaron Harrison get this gun? But there were no prints, no DNA on the weapon, but the weapon was found, and it was determined in court, in a civil court. The jury was convinced this kid did not point a gun at the police officer, and the officer shot him. Well, this Aaron Harrison's family was awarded a sum of money in the millions of dollars. I went to Gary McCarthy shortly thereafter, the verdict, because I think Montgomery handled the case, if I'm not mistaken. And I asked him, I said, well, what are you going to do? It appears that this jury believes that this gun did not belong to Aaron Harrison, right? Nor had he ever touched it. What are you going to do about that? Because the inference from all the evidence is that the cops threw the gun down. And you're not investigating that anymore? And that happens repeatedly.
What was his response, though, Charles?
Nothing. He said nothing. He kind of looked at me like, what are you asking that? That's old news. That's over. That's how they dispose of these things.
They actually make you feel like you're stupid.
Yeah, and you're not.
For asking. Okay, here's common sense. Am I crazy?
Yeah, and then this notion that somehow this recording, this video recording, remember, this isn't a civilian out there with a cell phone taking a picture of something that happens.
Right.
This is police evidence. This is police evidence. They have control of it, custody of it, and I assume at some point when the state's attorney gets involved, they shepherd what the police have. How did Steve Patton get his hands on this investigative material 6 months later? He's a civilian attorney. He is not a sworn officer. Now, I understand that he represents the police department, but at that point, a lawsuit had not been filed.
Correct.
So what was he doing with the evidence? And he has the evidence, and the mayor says he never saw the evidence.
And then they greenlit a $5 million settlement. But it can't be called a settlement, can it? If there was no case.
It was an offer. I mean, they offered somebody
it was
some
a settlement.
money.
It's in lieu of a lawsuit. So that you won't sue, we will give you this $5 million.
I can understand that. I can understand. But how did this evidence go from the police department to the corporation counsel without somebody making a phone call saying, hey, you got to look at this? What happened?
And the concern also being that this was a young man who was in our foster care system. He was a ward of the state. And so to even the work that it took to track down the biological family, to work with them, because the intricacies of the fact that he wasn't with his parents.
So I was under the understanding, though, that he was living with an uncle.
But whatever.
Right.
There should have been, if a $5 million settlement is made, I have to believe that in this particular case, there needs to be, the court needs to be involved in determining who in fact is the guardian of this child, where should the money go? I think that there's enough there for, at least if you're going to be the custodian of my tax dollars, I would hope that at that point there would be some investigation in terms of where does this money go and why are we paying this person the money? Is this person really responsible? Is this really what we want to do with our tax money? And apparently the city council signed off on this sight unseen.
And so what does the $5 million do? Guarantee that you don't say anything?
That's what it sounds like.
Did they have to sign something?
There was a provision in there that the family agreed that they would not release the video.
Would not release the video, or okay?
So you're not going to sue, and you have agreed that you will not release the video.
And so we got to the video because the judge felt that it was important. So, ladies and gentlemen, because we got an election coming up, right? And oftentimes when y'all get to the bottom of the ballot, you're tired. You're tired. So you say, you know what? Either you don't hit them or you don't punch them or you just push the first one in the top. And that works not to our benefit. Yeah. So I want to also encourage you to look for the Cook County Bar Association's list of recommended judges, because those judges are going to be the judges that look out for us. So now we are 400 days later. The tape comes out. The mayor goes on TV after meeting with all the community groups. Now, did anybody hear about this meeting with the community groups? Did anybody hear about the outcome? Because I heard it was a pretty offensive meeting.
I read some things about it. I think I read Carl West did a column about it.
We don't say that on this show.
We don't say that on the show?
We don't give any credence to that on this show. So we only deal with legitimate news sources here. So let me just say, we have 400 days later, the mayor calls the black community leaders together. Now, these are the same black community leaders that I'm not sure what the resources that are coming to our community are. And he basically tells them that they're responsible for making sure that the city doesn't go up. Basically, they're responsible. Now, if you watched Reverend Ackery on Chicago Tonight that same night, he was a little bit more frank. He said, the mayor said that if anything happens in the city, then you all do not have access. You won't have access to City Hall. He said it on Chicago Tonight. Who's responsible? You know, because here's me. And now this is where we're going to have us a little conversation. We're going to talk about this. But think about this. Why does Anita Alvarez hold the race? Why does she not prosecute? Why does she wait 400 days? She's not in the middle of an election.
Well, this is something that she's done. She's done this a lot. Right. I mean, she didn't prosecute the Koshman case. Remember that one?
Yep.
With the mayor's Mayor Daley's nephew, who was involved. She did this Dante Servin case. Went on for a couple of years, I think.
Correct.
Before it was...
She took 2 years before she charged.
And then she charged them wrong, didn't she?
The judge found that she did not apply the right charges. Correct.
How does that happen? Explain that to me.
I mean, you look at the evidence. You see what you got. You look at the law book and see what fits. She chose to charge reckless homicide. And the judge said you could have chosen murder. She chose not to do murder. That was a choice.
What would you have done?
I mean, I'm a lawyer first. So my caveat is I've not had the opportunity to look at the evidence. However, I've seen cases similar to that in my history as a state's attorney. I was a state's attorney for 12 years. And I've seen, again, similar cases. We've seen cases like that all the time where the person is charged with murder. There was no explanation of why this would be a reckless. If this were the two of you and you went and shot over your shoulder and you hit the wrong person, the likelihood would be that you would be charged with murder. That's just a fact. And I think she put Judge Porter in a position of, it ain't me. The judge threw the case out. And the judge, if you recall, was livid to be in a position of having to let this man walk because we want our judges, to your point, to rule based on the facts and the law. And he was put in a position where he knew that the law didn't match the facts.
Let me ask you something. You worked in that office how long?
12 years.
12 years. You worked for
Divine Alvarez.
And for Alvarez.
Yes.
What do you think? Do you think that office does not or does not adequately prosecute police misconduct? What do you think? Did you get the impression that was the case? And why didn't you say anything about it when you worked there?
So let me first say, Charles and Mays, Chicago has the first reparations fund for police torture in the country, right? We put $5 million plus into a reparations fund. And we've never
only after there was huge pressure.
But we never prosecuted anybody for torture. We're paying reparations, but we've never. John Burge didn't go to prison for torture. He went to prison for lying.
True.
We've never.
But the
prosecuted.
statute had expired at that point.
But they never prosecuted. So the question is, in my opinion about it, the facts are the facts. We have a number of violations that we can cite. The police officers have been brought up.
Did you notice that when you were working there that, hey, these cops are getting off? What's up?
I mean, I wasn't in that unit that dealt with those.
But you were in the office.
I mean, there was
you
a
read
frustration.
The papers.
Yeah, there's a frustration that we had that there seemed to be a delay in justice or a delay in charging when it came to law enforcement.
And people are going to want to know why kimfoxx didn't get out front and do something about that.
In terms of the cases while I was working?
Yeah, while you were working there and even looking across the room and seeing some cop in one of these misconduct cases walking.
Yeah, I mean, I started in the office in 2001 as a young attorney coming in doing child protection cases, and I worked my way up through the office. And you're talking about an office that had, when I started, almost 900 lawyers. And it is very much a close-knit old boy network.
And not very many people that look like you.
Not very many people of color. At the time that I started, there were far more men than women, and we were in positions that were low on the totem pole. And rising in that office was very, very difficult. Right now, today, Charles, there is not a black first chair at 26 in California.
Get out of here. Are you kidding me?
And so
that's the lead attorney on the case.
That's the lead attorney on the case. So at 26 in California, the felony trial courts, there's not a black lead attorney. And so the notion that, folks weren't speaking up, I was the president of the Chicago chapter of the Black Prosecutors Association. We got together. We went to Divine and said, why don't we have more people in positions of authority? Why aren't we being promoted at the same levels? Why are we, when we have community events, it's the black people going out and not other people going out? So we organized and we fought. And part of the reason I think I got promoted rather quickly was because I brought these efforts to the forefront. And the concerns, if I had the ability to go to the 32nd floor and have people do something, absolutely, we would have done it. It is a hard place for people of color to be in an office that's not reflective of you, but everybody who comes to the bench looks like you.
It's one of the reasons they say, well, we just can't find enough African American lawyers in particular to come in here and work in the public sector or work as an assistant state's attorney. Is that real, or is that proverbial?
I think we've heard that in many sectors. I think you have
everywhere.
to be deliberate. You have to want to do that. You have to be able to say, it's one of the largest law firms in the city of Chicago. If you got 815 lawyers working at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. If you're a private law firm, you have a chief diversity officer to make sure that your partners, or you have something in place that reflects the communities that you are working with or your clients. They don't do that there. You have less than 10% of the people or of the supervisors there are people of color.
Are they hiring these political hires? I mean, you know who gets hired in the office. You were there 12 years. Are they hiring their friends, their political friends, as they did back in the day? Are they continuing to do that?
I don't know if it's a matter of hiring, Charles, or a matter of promotion, right? So they do a lot of young people come in the beginning, and I'm certain that there are people who have familiar last names or work in familiar organizations. But for the most part, the large numbers of them come in, out of law school fresh. It's who gets promoted. If you don't have a black first chair and you have people who've been in that office for a decade or more, and they don't get promoted, that's where the question is, why would I hang out working at a place when I don't see myself reflected? I'm not getting good pay. It's an environment that is, again, it's an old boy network. You're taking it from the community because you're working in the state's attorney's office. You're not getting paid a lot and you're not getting promoted. So we lose a lot of people who, like you say, judges matter. The ability to charge a case, Maze, to drop a case, that's the prosecutor. We're not even going to see this case. That's a prosecutor. And when we're not in those places to make those decisions, when you talk about what's in it for the black people, when we're not there, somebody else is making all those decisions for a population that is largely black and Latino. And of that 86% that's black and Latino, almost 70% of the people who are in our jails are black.
So it seems like we got the same situation going on at the police department that we do at the state's attorney's office, right? Because it's like they shoot, except they shooting at the police department, and here they locking you up. If you make it through the shooting, then they bring you to the state's attorney's office. They lock you up. Whew. So, what do we do now? How do we deal with this? I mean, obviously we've got an election coming up, but let me just ask both of you all, since I got you both here, who's responsible? Right, like who do we hold accountable? And so I'm really trying to do the math, and again,
I think if you want to look at people,
I want to look at people.
At this
name
point,
the names.
Just as a reporter, I mean, the state's attorney has some questions to answer. The police superintendent has some questions he needs to answer about why this person continues to work. If he saw this tape. If he saw it, let's say he saw it a week after it happened even, at that point he's got to understand, do I want this person working anywhere?
Yeah, they wanted to pay him. They paid him $82,000 after he killed him.
This is a question of benefits.
This is a question of morality here.
$82,000 after.
How can you have this person who did this, and you saw him do it on video? How can you have him continue to work within your department? Then you go to City Hall and you wonder, well, if the Corporation Counsel saw this video and went before the Council Finance Committee to explain, this is terrible.
So do we think Burke saw the tape?
Well, I don't know who.
The Finance Committee should have seen the tape. They had to approve it.
And the members of the committee, and I think there are 30 some of them, they needed to see the tape before, or the video before they voted for this award. And for the mayor, it's incredulous that he would say he didn't see it when his own corporation counsel told him about it. Now, if I'm the mayor of the city of Chicago and my corporation counsel tells me, hey, boss, we got some horrible stuff on this video, I'm going to say, what horrible stuff? Sure, what video? I'm going to look at it. Wouldn't you?
I would.
Come on. I mean, and if they didn't and they authorized this award, then I think they have to answer that. They have to answer to the voters at some point, to the taxpayers. I mean, I pay taxes. That was my money.
No, but nah, don't get me started talking about taxes and our money.
And they're broke. Well, I mean, come on, they're broke anyway.
Well, think about this, Charles. They just raised our taxes $500 million, and they've paid over $500 million in settlements, in police brutality settlements over the last few years. So just think about that. Think about the gravity of what that means. So now, here we are. And we got this guy. So they finally decided to lock him up. Now I'm just going to tell you, it's a little bit disingenuous to prosecute him the day before it comes out, or to charge him the day before it comes out. And
not the day before, it was the day of.
Oh, the day of. Then they put him in jail, but they don't even put him in jail. They put him in a hospital. And then instead of getting locked up, they put him in a little PC, and then he gets out and he gets a bail. Should it not have been bail? I mean, should he have gotten bail? Like, you knew one point.
The brother that did actually didn't call him a brother, because I mean, I don't know anything about it. The guy that is charged with killing the 9-year-old, he got no bail. I mean, perhaps he didn't deserve any bail.
But did this guy deserve any bail?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
Let me say
there's a double standard. Does this guy deserve any bail?
But it's beyond a double standard to me, Charles, because here's the thing. Corey, whatever his name is, the murderer of, and let me just say this. And let me just say this. I'm still not rolling with the fact that they are I'm not saying he didn't do it, but I'm not gonna say, it's just, come on, man. So in the course of 1 week, we got the tape. We got Officer such and such, Officer Van Dyck charged. We got the tape released.
Servant fired.
Servant got fired. And then they caught the killers of the 9-year-old.
A steaming pile of Chicago politics at its worst. This whole thing. You mentioned the Fred Hampton murder many years ago. This is on that level. Only then we didn't have digital media. We didn't have video. See, they can't keep the lie straight fast enough with the movement of the information digitally. Now, back in the day,
they could just shut it
was
down.
Analog, they could shut things down for 2 or 3 years and 10 years even, and then, hand in hand, and then would not be responsible. They'd be out of office. But now,
social media is a beast.
Social media is deep.
So, all that has happened, and now I get a press release that tells me that the family of Robert Johnson is now asking for another video, which happened 2 days before. So now we're going to be at 402 days. Well, now we passed that 400. And so
yeah.
We're going to be at, before we see the prosecution of another murder. Now, what happens when these shootings are, and I'm going to ask you, Kim, because I'm going to hope that you would know. What happens when these shootings occur? Now, I know that they don't review the tape. They don't arrest anybody the same night because they got to take the night to fix the tapes. Where do those tapes go the next day? Like, tell me the process. So we got a shooting on the video camera. Now what?
So the shootings have to go before the Independent Police Review Authority. So you can, they take the video, they go, you're going to make copies of it, right? So everybody not looking at the same original copy. You make a copy of it. You make a complete file that you're going to have for your state's attorneys as well to review. So IPRA, Independent Police Review Authority, is supposed to look at the case, look at the elements. Does it line up with what you say has happened? The state's attorney can concurrently look at it or get the case from IPRA to review. And then their felony review process looks at the case. Again, what's the evidence that we have? What are the circumstances that, led us to this? And then what does the law say? And can I file charges?
So we got a tape. We got a videotape of a murder. Man, this is some junk they should have put on World Star early, because we would have got some more action after this. So now here we are. And we have this gentleman, and now I'm hearing rumors that he was overcharged. What are your thoughts on that? That he was charged with first-degree murder, which would be difficult to prove, and there's the possibility that he could get off.
So I want to clarify. So he was charged with first-degree murder, which will be difficult to prove because you have to prove intent. You have to prove that in those seconds that he got out that car, that he intended to kill this guy.
Not the ones after. So once he was down and he kept shooting, that don't count as he intended to make sure he was dead.
I mean, you can factor all that in, but it goes into, what was it's called mens rea. What was your mental state? Now, that's what you need for first degree murder, that was the intention. First degree murder has what we call lesser includeds underneath it, right? So like second degree, reckless.
Okay.
So it's possible that he could not be found guilty of first degree, but could be found guilty of second degree. What happened with Dante Servin was when they charged him with just a reckless, there was nothing else under it. You can't go up. You can always, the jury can look down. The jury can say, you know what, you didn't meet this, but you met it here.
Okay.
With Servin, it was, if she'd have charged him with murder, the judge could have said, you know what, it wasn't, it was second. When you charge with reckless, there's nowhere to go. You can't say it's reckless, it's murder, and charge up. You can't do that. That's the difference.
And is that double jeopardy if you would have went back? So can't go back to Servin?
You cannot go back. So when she undercharged, there was no ability to get it up.
But people are saying that, did she do that intentionally? Did the office do that intentionally to, again, get a cop off? I mean, people want to know that. You work there. Did they do something like that? Are you Ed Burke?
I wasn't there. What I will say is that, again, it took 2 years to come to a conclusion on what to charge. I mean, what are you doing for, at that point, 800 days to determine whether or not this person should be charged with a reckless or murder? What do you need in 2 years to make that determination? And then you make the determination, and it's for a charge that, like I said, it wasn't the highest of the charges you could have charged. It was at the lower one. And you still didn't get it. I can't tell you what her motives or intents was. I could just tell you the facts. The facts were it took 2 years. She didn't charge murder. She charged down here. Judge said wrong charge. Dismissed.
But I think people want to know just how diabolical these people are at the state's attorney's office, or if they are diabolical in their approach to meting out justice. And, that's what I think a lot of people are wondering about the Cook County justice system right now. Are these people that diabolical in their thinking?
The problem is the state's attorney's office, with as much power as it has, is the most opaque of all the offices. You don't know there's no transparency. There's absolutely no transparency in who's getting charged with what.
Is there a standard?
It's discretionary. And so, we talk about drugs all the time. If we all know everybody uses drugs at the same rate, right? Mm-hmm. Except you don't
white boys do better drugs than any black person.
I'm talking about the quality. I'm talking about the amount.
I'm saying the amount and the quality.
But they're not in our jail.
Right.
And the question becomes, who's making those decisions?
Well, it's
policing and prosecution.
That reminds me of when I was in Springfield and I was lobbying, and all of the Republican legislators wanted to come up with heroin treatment, right? Now, when they were saying blows on Madison and Pulaski, it was lock them up. But when it was they kids coming from the suburbs, and not every white kid in the suburb, not every, but a bunch of white kids in the suburbs got a heroin addiction, now we got to get treatment, right? We got to get treatment. So now, here we are. What happens? Do we get a special prosecutor? Let me back up. As a candidate for Cook County State's Attorney, what are you recommending that should be done to bring some justice to this situation?
Yeah, I think that the integrity of this investigation and these charges are called into question. That when you have done this in darkness for 13 months, that the public, because don't forget, the state's attorney represents the people of the state of Illinois. It's not just Laquan's family. They're representing all of us. And if we don't have faith in the integrity of this investigation, and this prosecutor, then we should have a special prosecutor come in and do this case. We should have a special prosecutor do this case.
Now, I don't know if you're aware, but when they passed the body cam bill in Springfield, there was also a provision that said that in police-involved shootings, they would automatically determine that there would be a special prosecutor. But that doesn't take effect until 2016. Is there a way for that to be triggered retroactively to get it, but we can still call for a special.
I think you can still call for it. They've called for special prosecutors before on this state's attorney. I mean, keep in mind that Koshman was a case that she said was not able to be prosecuted, and we got a special prosecutor who found or was able to get a guilty verdict out of that. I think there should be a willingness on her part to have a special prosecutor come in so that we, as the community, who, again, she represents the people of the state of Illinois, can believe that there will be justice in this case.
Well, I'm going to say that I have a hard time believing that we're going to get justice in this case unless we continue strong action and do not let the pressure up, because I think they're just hoping that we'll let this go. But I think that when this second tape comes out, I think it's going to get just that much worse. Now,
or the third tape.
Or the third or the 15th, because we know it's a bunch of them. Let me ask a question. This is political landmines. I'm going to drop them out here.
Charles.
So, Charles, what role do you think the mayor had in this?
Well, he can say that he didn't see the video, and that's an indictment of him. That's an indictment of his management style, and I don't believe that for a minute. If anything, he's more of a micromanager than he is a delegator. But, I want you to think, I remember when he was inaugurated the first time, I was at an event at the DuSable Museum, and I can remember looking at him and saying, everybody, including me in this room, and I'm a reporter, I try to stay above the fray as much as possible, but I said it to him that night. I said, Rahm Emanuel, we want you to be the greatest success the city has ever seen, because he had just been elected the first time, and we were coming off the Daley years. City had a lot of problems ahead of it, and everybody in that room, and they were 95% black folks, said, Rahm Emanuel, we want you to be the most successful mayor this city has ever seen, because we all love Chicago.
We do.
I have to say that today, 4 years and 6 months, let's say, after he took office, this city is a train wreck.
Let me ask a question.
I'm serious. I mean, a train wreck. When you think about a school CEO having been indicted and pleading guilty to corruption charges, when you think about the largest tax increase in the history of the city, when you think about the persistent fiscal problems not only in the city but also at the Board of Education, you think about this red light camera business that's going on all over town. This city is in serious, as well as the routine black on black crime that's going on in the city. This city has got some serious issues, not just here, but the country is watching Chicago melt down. I mean, they've got a movie opening last week, Chirac.
Kim went.
I mean, it's just things are. He's right now governing a train wreck, and
now is he governing it or is he driving the train?
Whatever, but he's got so much to fix, and this thing, I mean, it reeks of again
Watergate 2015 Chicago.
You said
style.
it, I didn't. Chicago style Watergate, or it harkens back to the Fred Hampton days. I mean, Beirut by the Lake wasn't this bad. At least we had Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, and some stuff going for us that was, that you could say that the 80s, despite Beirut by the Lake, was a gilded age for the city because of all the wonderful things that were happening at the same time. But right now, man, Rahm, what happened?
Let me tell you. I think that, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think he was an executive. I think that he was a Washingtonian. I think all of the challenges that people talked about when they initially were fighting him have played out. I think he really doesn't know our city very well. He doesn't know the people very well. He doesn't know the people, places, or things. He has not done a good job of trying to be a part of the city. It's like they came in, they descended on the city, and they sit on top of it like they're better, and they kind of lord over it. And you got all these people that don't know who, what, where, when, why, or how. And then they keep picking these crazy people to be the point people who know and cannot get anything done.
Let me ask you, what's up with McCarthy, man? What's up with Rahm defending this guy?
Hey, man.
When in fact he said on this, he saw the tape.
Let me tell you.
He saw the video.
Y'all know if Mayor Daley was here, whoop, we would have been tap dancing on
you
Duke's
think about
grave
McCarthy.
already.
I got to tell you something. McCarthy, I
don't like him.
I like the guy.
I don't.
I liked the guy. The guy to me was a cop's cop. How could he allow himself to be dragged into this cesspool of Chicago politics?
Because he was doing it in New Jersey.
Well, his reputation now is ruined. This guy can't get a police superintendent's job,
but Charles,
police chief's job anywhere in the country.
Are you seeing the stories that are coming out about Newark, though? They're saying that gotta come.
Newark, that was Newark, but this.
But they're under federal monitoring.
And they don't but the Newark, they don't have a video. They're gonna run anywhere this guy goes. Can you imagine the debate that would happen in another city if this guy was being considered to be the police chief there? They drag the video out and say, this guy sat on this for 13 months. You want him to be your police chief? Next candidate.
Oh, see, they need to do what they need. See, here's what Gary McCarthy needs to do. Let me tell you, Mr. Mayor, if you listen to me, I'm gonna tell you, because you really can't win right now. There's nothing you can really do to win right now, especially if another tape comes out. But if I were you, Mr. Mayor, I would ask McCarthy to go fall on his sword, and then I would tell all my wealthy friends, give him a high-tech security job somewhere where he's done very, very well. Because here's my thought, Charles. My thought is that the mayor's future is tied to McCarthy, right? See, if I throw McCarthy over the bus and he decides, oh, you saw the tape on the way out the door.
Yeah, you saw
the deck goes up, right? Yeah. The deck goes up, and you know McCarthy likes to drink.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm not in on it.
You're not in on that. But I'm saying, you ain't see the story about him and his brother shooting out street lights in Brooklyn?
I don't like
you need to start reading the Second City Police blog.
Well, yeah, I do. And I believe about 2% of it.
Okay.
That's the thing, Second City for 2, that's second percentage point.
Look, guys, this time has flown by. We actually literally only have 3 minutes left. 3 minutes, look, you got off. You got easy. It was good. This was a great discussion. Kim, we're going to have you back. But what I want to do is, because we did take this, and I want to thank you for coming out, I want you to take a little moment to, tell my listeners, tell the viewers kind of a little bit about yourself, your campaign, your candidacy, what we should expect. And, man, I just need you to promise that if you become the state's attorney, that you don't prosecute only black people, because it seems like that's all the state's attorney does. Okay, tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, Maze. To Charles' point about where Chicago is, I grew up in Chicago, so all of this is personal to me. Where we are, is well documented. I grew up in Cabrini in the late 70s and early 80s, product of a single mom, and went to Chicago public high schools, went to SIU for undergrad and for law. And so my roots have been in, the city, and I come from communities that I'm talking about serving. And so this is a role for me about service and about making sure that the quality of life for every community is the same. I mean, I grew up where my grandmother had to make sure, somebody was watching us at all times, and we could count on our neighbors to look out for us. We have children who can't go outside and play. Can't go jump rope because they're afraid of getting struck down. We have not only what happened with Tyshawn Lee is horrifying, but his classmates that are going to school every day with the knowledge that one of their own was struck down, and the trauma that causes is real. And so my work in public service has been around working with kids who were abused and neglected, working with kids who come from situations like mine and who were on paths that can lead them into our criminal justice system. And so, I've dedicated the last 18 years of my career to public service, to the county, to the most vulnerable, and working on jail reductions in a safe way so that we weren't locking up so many African American and Latinos for petty stuff. So then when they get out, they can't get a job, or they go back to the same areas where high concentrations of poverty and low educational attainment. So for me, I'm running for this office for no other reason than I've been blessed to live a life that allows me to be in positions to change the outcomes for people like me. It is very personal to me, this work. And what happened with Laquan, not just because he came through juvenile court, but because that could have been my brother, or that could have been my cousin. And the notion, like I started with when we first started talking about this, that this could have been gone away with nobody knowing, and that nobody would have stood up for this young man because we didn't value his life as if he were somebody with a different last name, is horrifying. And we have accepted that for too long. I think we've just become accustomed to, we just make up the jail population. Just blacks, we just are in there. Like, that's how it's been. And so I'm running so that I can bring fairness and equity to our system and keep our community safe, so that my kids have the same quality of life as somebody else's kids, that our elders have the same quality of life. And so I'm running for no other reason. It's not about personalities or politics, because we could talk about that and then lose sight of the issue. If it's just about, she don't like Alvarez, we'll lose the sight that 86% of our jails is Black and Latino. We're not even talking about the issues when we're talking about the people. So I encourage people to check me out. Go to kimfoxx.com, Fox with 2 X's, like Jamie, like Red. X's.
Okay.
And ask me tough questions. I'm sorry you didn't get to ask me all your tough questions.
That's all right, because I ask them on Facebook.
You will. No. And I'll answer. Ask me we should hold me accountable. We should have held Anita accountable a long time ago. Hold me accountable.
Real quick, and then I gotta go. Thank you for listening. So how do you respond to the rumors that if you take over the state's attorney's office, that it will really be run by the Cook County Board President?
Tony Preckwinkle is not a lawyer and not a prosecutor. And I am beholden to the people who elect me, and that is the citizens of Cook County. I cannot dispel that enough. I tell people all the time, I'm Janelle's daughter. That's who I am.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been tuned into you've been tuned into IntellectualRadio.com, www.intellectualradio.com. We are an iHeart radio station. This is the Maze Said radio show and podcast with my guest, candidate for Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx, and my boy, my homie, looking all crisp and dark from coming back from the islands, Charles Thomas from ABC7. I got my super producer Earl in the studio, and we will be back next week. Download the podcast if you missed it on iHeartRadio, and you can also check out the video. It'll be on www.mazejacksonsaid.com. I am your host. See you next week.
I come on the heels of Rakim and Kane, KRS-One, Coogee Rap, P.E. Nas, and Cool James. And even though I left the rap game, I'm still lyrically thirst. Drop cold from the last name and put black in front of the first. And with this gift comes a curse. That's where the hater comes in at. And with success comes the work.